All right, learning target number 2. We're going to learn to graph quadratic functions by finding the axis of symmetry, or the AOS, and the vertex, and the y-intercept, and one additional point. So let's start with the axis of symmetry. The axis of symmetry, or the AOS, what we'll call it for short, is the dividing line, the center dividing line of the parabola that kind of breaks it in half, if you will. That's the axis of symmetry. We also want to find the y-intercept, which of course is going to be where the parabola intersects the y-axis. So right there, that would be our y-intercept. Then we'll also find the vertex. And of course, if you remember from the last lesson, the vertex is this little point at which the parabola either opens up or opens down. And that determines whether the parabola has a maximum or a minimum. And you'll remember that the minimum is the vertex when the parabola opens up, and the maximum is the vertex when the parabola opens down. In this case, we have a minimum. So in order to find the axis of symmetry, we're going to remember this one helpful formula, negative b over 2a. That's going to help us find the axis of symmetry every time. So in order to graph our quadratic, we're going to take these 3 steps. First thing we're going to do is find our axis of symmetry. Then we're going to find the vertex. And then finally, last of all, we're going to find the y-intercept. So let's start by finding our axis of symmetry. Remember that the standard form for a parabola was ax squared plus bx plus c. So we had our a, our b, and our c. And our formula for finding the axis of symmetry was x is equal to negative b over 2a. So we'll take our b value, which is 4, and we'll take the opposite of that, which is negative 4. And then we'll take our a value, which in this case is a negative 1, and we'll multiply that by 2. That's going to give us negative 4 over negative 2, which gives us 2. That is going to be the x value of our axis of symmetry. It's going to be the x value of our vertex, in fact. So if we were to draw a line here, we could imagine drawing a line straight down our axis of symmetry. Let's make it a dashed line there. We would have a line that went straight down through positive 2 on the x-axis. And that's going to be the axis of symmetry around which our parabola is going to go down and around. If you remember, we don't know where it's going to be yet. We don't know where it's going to be on the y-axis, but we know where it is going to be on the x-axis. So to find out where it will be on the y-axis, we need to find the vertex. So in finding the axis of symmetry, what we found was our x value, right? We found where our axis of symmetry is going to be crossing the x-axis. What we're going to do to find the vertex is simply substitute that value back in to the original equation. So we'll say that our y value is going to be equal to the negative of 2 squared, because again, that's our axis of symmetry. That x coordinate is 2, plus 4 times 2 minus 2. And of course, we've got 2 squared, which is 4, and that's the negative of that. Remember that the parentheses are around the thing that's squared, and the negative is on the outside. Plus 4 times 2, which is 8, and then minus 2. And we add all those together. Negative 4 plus 8 is 4, minus 2 is 2. So our y value of our vertex is going to be 2, which means that our coordinates for our vertex, the actual vertex itself, is going to be 2, which is the x value right here, 2, and the y value also, which is 2, for a coordinate of 2, 2. So our vertex will be right here at 2, 2. Now in order to graph our parabola, we'll need more than one point, right? We have one point, we have our vertex, and we also know that because it's a negative, we know that our vertex, that our parabola is going to be opening down. But what we need is to find another couple of points, and the easiest one to find is actually going to be our y-intercept, because at the y-intercept, our x value is going to be 0. Wherever this parabola intersects with the y-axis, our x value is going to be 0. So we'll plug that back in to the equation. So we'll say that y is equal to the negative of 0 squared plus 4 times 0 minus 2. Now that looks pretty easy, right? Because the negative of 0 squared is just 0 plus 4 times 0, which is 0. And that's going to leave us with negative 2. So that our y-intercept is going to be 0, right? Which is the place at which it locates on the axis, 0, negative 2. And then we'll graph that on our coordinate grid. So at 0 for the x-axis, y value is going to be negative 2. There's our point. So we just need to find one more point, and we need to find one that's on the same side of the axis of symmetry as the y-intercept. So we need to find one on this left-hand side. And it looks like -1 might be a good one to do. So we will just plug in -1 into the original equation. And notice that I'm putting my -1 inside the parentheses before I square it. That's going to be really important. 4 times -1 and -2. So -1 times -1 is 1, but we have to take the opposite of it, so that's a -1. 4 times -1 is -4, -2. And when we combine all those together, -1 plus -4 is -5, plus a -2 is -7. So our y-coordinate is going to be -7, and we already have our x-coordinate, we said was -1. So our final point is going to be -1, -7. And we'll graph it at -1, -7 right there. And by definition, the axis of symmetry, or as we said earlier, the AOS, the axis of symmetry, is the point at which the parabola mirrors itself. So all these points are going to mirror on the other side of the axis of symmetry. So we'll have this one, which is 2 spaces away, and then this one, which is 1, 2, 3. We'll have it 1, 2, 3 on this side, right there. And then all we have to do is draw our lines. Now, it's not going to be great because I'm not a terrific artist, but that's okay. It's going to be close, just like that. There's a parabola, part of the parabola on that side, and one that's on that side. Again, I'm not a fantastic artist, and I'm drawing this on a graphics tablet, so hang with me. But that is roughly your parabola. Remember that we found, first of all, we found the axis of symmetry, then we found the vertex, and then we found the y-intercept, and then we found one more point, and we were able to graph it from that. And that's it for this lesson.